you think you already know the story of how 34-year-old teacher Mary Letourneau and 13-year-old student Vili Folau started the mind-boggling relationship that spawned 2 children, a 7-year prison term, and a marriage, they want to tell you, you don't. When you hear them tell it, nothing about this story is what you'd expect, starting with how it all began. Though Vili was a 6th grader and Mary was a grown woman, they both insist he was the one who put the moves on her.
When I think about the first moves I made, I mean, I remember I used to plan the next day, what I was going to do, what I was going to say, what surprise I was going to leave on the desk.
Vili says he had no trouble attracting girls his own age and didn't see why his teacher should be any different.
And so I was like, okay, let me see what I can do, so I started doing the same thing with her, and
I ignored you.
Tried to.
Did.
Tried to.
Mary says she tried to keep focused on her teaching, but Vili's very deliberate attempts at seduction made that difficult.
It was really a great frustration that I have a job and I was determined to do it, and he wasn't taking it seriously. And
well, he was 13.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say that, you're kind of expecting him to act and have some responsibility that an adult would have. And at the time, he was not an adult. He was 13.
Yeah. There was an air about him that was older.
Young as he was, Vili seemed to have an intuition for how to woo a much older woman, who, by her account, was trapped in a chilly marriage. How did you make her fall in love with you? Mary says it was all about visual contact, long, intense gazes from her students' soulful brown eyes. Vili says he also scored points by giving her poems and drawings, even by starting provocative conversations.
I asked her if she would ever have an affair, and, to see if I had a chance.
Mary says she tried to use that as a teaching moment, advising young Vili to look up affair in the dictionary.
I just was afraid that it might, something in the conversation, it's like, okay, he's coming too close. And finally me personally, no.
So you asked her and she said no?
Yeah.
And you thought, what, I can fix that?
I did.
Vili says he was not a virgin at the time, and he was confident Mary would be his next lover.
I wanted her, so I wasn't going to stop. And I was going to try and do it and not, I don't know, was I aggressive? Or was I pretty much respectful?
He was definitely forceful with his advances.
And you were attracted to him?
We really got along well, and I was trying to leave it at a level with, gee, I really think you're great. But there was something different, though. We had a chemistry and the way our heads worked.
Back when this first broke in the headlines, I think lots of people understand how a 13-year-old would get a crush on his teacher. I think what people didn't understand, and the question everybody was asking then, and that I'm now going to ask you, is how does a 34-year-old woman fall for a 13-year-old boy?
He's quite the man, and was back then, actually.
It is a version of events that will no doubt infuriate a lot of child psychologists and law enforcement officers, and probably some of you at home too. How could a 13-year-old, no matter how manly, be an appropriate partner for a grown woman? Under the law, of course, he cannot be. Mary concedes she knew it would be wrong to let the relationship go any further, but she says as soon as the school year ended, she and Vili did cross that line. It happened after the two of them ate dinner alone at a restaurant called Huckleberry Square. Afterwards, in the parking lot, they say, it was Vili who leaned over and started their first kiss.
I thought the kiss was only going to last for a couple seconds, but it ended up lasting for 30 minutes. Could have lasted longer, but I had to go home. So, And I got in trouble when I got home. It was like 11:30 at night. Way past my curfew.
Over the next few months, Vili would be missing curfew a lot. They saw each other secretly all through the summer and began sleeping together, even sometimes at Mary's home. Then, in his 7th grade year, though he was at another school, Vili would stop back at Shorewood Elementary in the afternoons to meet up with the married woman he now considered his girlfriend.
It was very clear that we wanted to be together, and it was serious.
Perhaps it's understandable that Vili wasn't concerned about all this leading to serious trouble.
Did you have any second thoughts at that point? Did you think, I'm going to get in trouble, or I could get her in trouble?
The most I really was afraid of was getting the whoopings from my mom.
But Mary's reaction is a little harder to grasp.
What were you worried about?
His mother getting angry.
That's it. You weren't thinking to yourself, I could be fired, I could go to jail?
Oh, no. There wasn't a time that I thought or that he thought that you could go to prison for that.
Okay, I understand that he didn't think that, but you never thought that?
No, I wasn't. I thought, gee, this doesn't look good. You know, just being a teacher.
She claims she'd been thinking of leaving teaching anyway. The romance intensified as the months passed. Then, that winter, Mary got the biggest news yet. She was going to have Vili's baby.
What went through your mind?
It's kind of a sensitive subject. The truth is, I felt an enormous freedom. I can't even describe.
In a few months, she'd be having a baby who probably wasn't going to look much like Steve Letourneau. But that meant freedom, she says, because now she would have no choice but to seek the divorce she'd been too scared to ask for.
When I was pregnant, it was like, there it is. It was just final.
When you found out Mary was pregnant, what'd you think?
Honestly, I didn't know what to think.
Mary and Vili say abortion was not a serious option, and for a brief while, they imagined they and the baby could be together as a family.
It just works for us. And it did back then, and it definitely was frowned upon in a very serious way.
It was more than frowned upon.
Okay, yeah.
How could she not know it was a crime? Remember, back in 1997, there hadn't been a lot of notorious cases in the news of female teachers prosecuted for consensual sex with underage boys.
It was actually my ex-husband that said, my divorce attorney says that you can be charged with a felony. And I was like, felony?
When we come back, reality sinks in as the former teacher goes to prison. But the couple still finds a way to keep in touch.
We had a pretty sophisticated number code.
Give me just a couple of them.
104 was I love you.
How did the message make its way out of prison?